Well, thank you very much, Maria, for organizing and for coming to hear a little bit about this DIT biology project for genomic integrity I've been working on with the Aquarium in Lausanne. I'm not sure how many of you really have a lot of biology background, so I sort of will start out going through some of the background of what I mean by genomic integrity, because it's sort of trying to draw a lot of things together into one simple concept, but I think there's a good reason for that. And at the Aquarium, there's lots of people who are just engineers who are interested in going to Mars and things like that, are interested in cleaning up pollution. So I think it's worthwhile to go over a little bit some of the molecules in our cells, and then tell about my project that's to help people look in their own cells for DNA damage by two different classic methods. Some of these methods are already sold by companies in kits, and I think it's pretty easy to make a sort of open source method if you have limited laboratory supplies. So this is my Prezi about DIT biology for genomic integrity. So what is genomic integrity? Well, it's a new big picture concept that my group AGIR, Action for Genomic Integrity Through Research, has been promoting to include basically all the molecular genetic details inside your cells. Not just DNA and its sequence, but the RNAs that help keep it well, the microRNAs, the epigenetic marks that are not just on DNA itself, but also on the proteins, and everything else. So this just then my big idea is to use cheek cells, your own cheek cells, because of course everybody's most interested in themselves. And so this just shows some cheek cells that are stained with the CyberSafe dye from my own mouth, actually. But we've been starting to get some workshops together and do more of these things as the protocols get more defined. But there are some real challenges to doing that without the CyberSafe dye, so I'll talk about that. So if there's any questions at any time, just stop me, and I'll try and go through pretty quickly. So how many people actually do have a lot of biology background? Just one, really. Okay, so it's worthwhile going through it then. So okay, so what I call genomic integrity is this active maintenance of all these genetic elements in cells. And it's supposed to be a dynamic thing going on in all your cells. Nothing static, change is the only constant, as they like to say. And I think that this dynamic process in our cells is what's helping us stay healthy in spite of all the challenges, all the mutations that we're loaded up with in life these days. So, just for a bit of background, it's good to consider that, it's not quite, that all DNAs, RNAs, proteins, lipids, they're basically made up of the same 8 to 11 chemical components. They come together in different 3D shapes, and that's what gives them their function. Structure gives function. And if something cross-links molecules together, of course there's going to be problems with dynamic activities in the cell. So we're made up of billions of cells, and 10 to the 13 cells are in our bodies. Of course, 10 to the 14 cells are not really strictly us. They include the microbiome and all the other bacteria and so on our bodies. But all these things come together, and many things that we're exposed to, or even that we choose to expose ourselves to because of the products we use, can, like cross-linkers like formaldehyde, disrupt genomic integrity. This just gives an example of dividing cells. During the division of one cell to two daughter cells, there's a lot of reorganization that happens in the DNA. It has to get packaged, duplicated, and separated to the two daughter cells. And so you can see, even though these are just snapshots, a lot of very long molecules have to get organized for your cells to be healthy and to give appropriate children. And a lot of people like to talk about how the DNA sequence will tell you all about your risks of various diseases. Well, this point is just that our DNA sequences are not at all set in stone, the way people like to think. Actually, we all carry these patchwork of mutations, and these dynamic changes that happen to DNA aren't just because of mutations, but are key for our health. And I'll give a few examples of those. And if DNA is damaged, it is actively repaired. We have over 100 genes that do that in our cells. So for instance, the immune system, which is so important for health, it requires active DNA rearrangements to respond properly. This just shows a simple antibody made by your B cells, one of the white blood cells of your blood. And it also has a region that gets hypermutated, this variable portion. So mutagenesis, active mutagenesis, gives you health, in a sense. But if the rearrangements are messed up by various agents that cross-link or slide in between the molecules that are supposed to be cut and pasted together incorrectly, then you'll have a problem with your immune system. And of course, autoimmune diseases are really on the rise these days. And then an interesting thing that not many people have followed up too much about it is that these similar activities, cutting and pasting of DNA sequences, is very likely to happen even in your neurons. And it could have something to do with brain function, like memory and learning. For instance, this RAD1 recombinase was identified first in the immune system, but it's really highly expressed in parts of the brain. And people have seen, they call it damage to DNA in neurons, but actually it might be part of activity. And then there's this whole point about gene expression. Your DNA has to be made into products. These products are either RNAs that get made into proteins that are the main structures in your cells, but also there are a whole bunch of microRNAs and large RNAs that are responsible for many aspects of the cell, some of which are still not fully understood. So gene expression is really dependent on something they call epigenetics. So not just the DNA sequence itself, but something above the DNA sequence. And actually, people always talk about epigenetics like it's one thing, but actually it's at least 4 different things. It's direct marks right on the DNA, methylation, acetylation on the DNA sequence, and it's also changes in the chromatin factors, the proteins that wrap up the DNA. So here, this is a slide from a seminar speaker who was at the UNA last fall, in November, I shouldn't say fall, spring for you. Claudine Julien, and she's a very interesting speaker. You can just see her nose here. But anyway, some of the epigenetic marks give you open, permissive chromatin, so gene expression happens easily in different parts of the genome. And other marks close up the chromatin, so it's repressed. And so in the case of the histones, which are proteins that help wrap up the DNA in these beads on a string thing that we know from plastic studies, when there's a methylation on these proteins, you get less gene expression from the parts of DNA that have it. So there's these proteins called deacetylases that help take off these acetyl groups or methylases, and they're methylases, methyltransferases, and acetylases. So acetyl groups also go on the histones. And when the deacetylase is one of the exciting ones, when it opens up the chromatin, then you have more gene expression for a certain gene. And of course, then there's outright DNA damage and potential mutagenesis. And in fact, the 2015 Nobel in Chemistry was awarded to Tom Lindell for his studies on DNA repair. And so, there are lots of different sites on the DNA that are subject to being damaged, and so this just shows one of the slides that he gave in his Nobel lecture. And so this also gives an example of alkylation, and different kinds of cross-links. So these are many different compounds, chemicals, can end up causing different levels of DNA damage. So if they get exposed into your body and into your cells, then you'll have damage that needs to get repaired. So here is an overview of a whole bunch of different ways we can get DNA damage. So just normal cellular metabolism, when you make energy, you make oxygen radicals, and those can damage DNA. UV light, of course, everybody knows about melanoma, what a problem that can be. Ionizing radiation, not just from Hiroshima, but from X-rays, chemical exposures. There are many ways you can damage DNA, and also just normal, when the cell divides and has to duplicate itself, there's replication errors. And so all these things need to be repaired, and there are many active mechanisms that do this. And there are different things that happen when DNA damage happens. A whole set of proteins glom on there, and they can be seen. I'll show you a picture. They can be seen, well, with fluorescence microscopy. And so there's checkpoints of the cell cycle, so they block the cell from dividing, so it can try and repair. And there's different changes in transcription, gene expression to make RNA. And then there's at least 3 types of DNA repair, mismatch repair, and double-strand break repair. And the best, of course, is homologous recombination, because then you end up with the same normal wild-type sequence after the repair process. But if the cell has many, many damage events, there can be something called non-homologous end joining. And then the cell goes and says, what can I do? I'm just going to stick these 2 ends together. And that's when you end up with things like activated oncogenes and cancer. And if you could stimulate homologous gene recombination all the time, you might have a much better chance of having less problems from the DNA damage we encounter in our daily lives. Okay, and so this is just also an example. Sometimes infections, like with chlamydia, end up making a lot of reactive oxygen species, and then you get more DNA damage again. And also some of the bacteria that causes ulcers, those are also associated with stomach cancers. Again, there's the fact that some bacteria actually make factors that actively attack DNA in the host. And again, there's many different proteins involved. So in this case, you can see an example of the Fanconi anemia, where it's associated, there's a mental deficiency with people who have this also, and their blood cells are messed up. Again, there are just many proteins that when there's DNA damage, there's a kinase that at the stalled replication fork, when the DNA is being replicated, and then first one set of proteins comes on, then another set of proteins, including the BRCA, the breast cancer gene that is known to be at risk for breast cancer, and different deubiquitin-enablling enzymes, and these classic spirals of activation, inactivation in response to an event. And so, as I mentioned, these foci of DNA damage factors can actually be visualized. So here, I give all the references in this Prezi, and actually it's available freely online. So if you want to look at some of the references here, it's easy to do that. So untreated cells, this is a special kind of histone 2. And when there's a gamma H2A, that means it's activated and it's going and binding at double-stranded breaks in the DNA. So normally, the normal histone that's not really associated with the DNA repair, there's a few spots, but there's more spots with the gamma H2A. So these are just normal damage events in these tissue culture cells, basically. But if you treat with something that induces double-stranded breaks, you get way more foci of these repair factors. And I should point out that these mutations in these DNA repair factors are the most strong risks for any kind of cancer. And in fact, this BRCA mutation, which was defined by breast cancer risk, actually is really bad for prostate cancer in men too. It's not really sex-specific at all. It's part of DNA repair. It's surprising how few people think about these things. So how is genomic integrity at risk? Again, this is reiterating a lot of what I've already said, but the molecules in our cells can be damaged by many common compounds. Formaldehyde is a very simple compound. If you think of benzene from gasoline, that's just a little ring with those extra floating. There are many different things we're exposed to all the time. Polyaromatic hydrocarbons from when you barbecue for Christmas. Well, you should think about those because those induce DNA damage too. and things within the cell, not just from outside of the cell, are giving DNA damage, and so it has to get repaired. And so again, normal cellular physiology can cause this, and there's another Prezi that I made, I think it's 2 years ago now, about DNA damage and its repair, that I recommend you have a look at if you're interested in it, because it's just part of normal life. And again, this is why we have at least 100 genes that we're carrying. But in some cases, we have a choice about what we are exposed to, and that's what AGIR, this public service association I started, is about. We're focusing on these things initially, but we really hope that a more general awareness of these problems will ultimately help decrease how many of these things are made and how many are released into our environment. So people pick their poster child ingredient, like BPA, for instance. Sure, the tin can linings have this BPA. It's basically then a phenol with, well, it has 2 phenol rings, but it's something that would just slide into the DNA. But anything that is a substitute for this BPA might be just as toxic, if not more toxic. So that's why we're trying not to focus on just one compound or one ingredient. We're just saying, look at the effect. This is the cause of cancer. This is the cause of developmental diseases. All these things in our environment. And if we can show simply how DNA is damaged, or how, also there's a whole story about how RNA helps DNA get repaired, and RNA is thought to be really the basis of life, then maybe we'll make things better for all of us and for future generations. So this is just showing our flyer. We have a little flyer campaign about all the things that can damage DNA and disrupt genomic integrity, and I recommend you all print them out and put them up anywhere you know people smoking. And but of course, things like sunshine, some of the sunscreens we've used in the past with the Kaba, and who knows about the things in there right now, those can be very bad for DNA damage, for causing DNA damage. So really the best thing is to seek shade. Use a parasol. We have too many people trying to sell things to us, I think. So why is this so important? The concept of genomic integrity, I think, can be used to simplify criteria for regulation. This might help protect our health and benefit our planet before it's too late. I mean, people talking about global climate change and how the temperature is raising and so on and so forth. It's a bit too late for that, but maybe it's not too late for this. Well, maybe it's not too late for global climate change. The problem is that there have been many arguments about what really constitutes a carcinogen, a mutagen, an endocrine disruptor. All these things are actually used as delaying tactics by the manufacturers, I believe, and many people have written books about this. I'm not the first one. And so what I think is that if we put all these different compounds of concern together, we look at really the effect in cells, then actually, if we realize how they affect everything alive, not just us, and future generations, it should be beneficial so regulatory agencies can actually move forward and change things. And there's this whole thing about the dose makes the poison for endocrine disruptors. And I think this is totally fallacious. In fact, the dose makes the poison only makes sense when you're talking about real toxicity. For genomic integrity, for the things I'm talking about, the cell has to survive the insult for it to make any problem. So if the cell's really killed off by exposure to benzene, then it's not going to hurt you really. But if it got the wrong mutation, then you might have cancer. Or if it's a germline cell, that kid might have autism. Okay, so the thing about low dose effects totally makes sense. The high dose could be just what kills the cell off, and then it's not a problem. Okay, so hopefully somebody will think about this and listen a bit, and there are people pushing these things already, and hopefully AGIR will help this. And yeah, lead. Grecian formula is still being sold. So in America they say it's outlawed. You're not supposed to have, it's one of these things for getting rid of gray hair. It's the thing that Ronald Reagan supposedly used to have his beautiful black hair all through his life. And of course, he ended up with Alzheimer's. But lead is a potent neurotoxin and should definitely hurt genomic integrity, as I said. And yeah, you go on Amazon, you can see fusion formulas for sale. And that shouldn't be the case. So, okay, how am I hoping that idea can help? Well, one way is this DIT DIY project idea. And again, this is only looking at one very small aspect of genomic integrity, the direct DNA damage. Looking at RNAs, looking at how proteins are getting cross-linked, many things could be used to assay. But these are using my ideas to use two classic methods, the COMET assay and the micronuclei assay, which are well known to be correlated with risk of different cancers. And using your own inner cheek cells, you can you do these two methods fairly simply in a public lab if you have a microscope, if you have slides, and there's still some challenges to making a good open source method, but that's what I'm hoping to do. And I should mention also DIT biology is do it together. And the idea is that not only do it yourself, but there are all these engineers and other people. When they come together, sometimes you get very useful synergies, I believe. And so this shows that a cheek cell embedded in agarose, and it's this image. But I'll explain more about these different assays. So the COMET assay is generally used on blood cells, and there have been some good papers about people, say, working in gas stations, and how they have many more white blood cells with a lot of broken DNA. So basically, the length of the comet tail is correlated with the amount of double-stranded breaks in DNA. And also, there was something about hairdressers, and their comets, they have many more comets that show more DNA damage from the things they're exposed to, especially formaldehyde from some of these hair straightening. But also the treatments to curl people's hair also use formaldehyde. So it's, you can't win for losing. No, actually, I think the best thing in terms of hair is for people to learn to be happy with what they're given, if possible. That's not really human nature. But anyway, this just is another example of how a comet, the relative amount of DNA in the comet tail relative to the amount in the head, as seen on this image, relates to how much DNA damage there is. And so these show, it's not very easy to see, but those are some comet cells of my own cheek cells. Maybe I'll just, so this was actually positive control, but they're very long. I used hydrogen peroxide. And so this is a positive control to show from the embedded cheek cells that you can indeed get comets. And before, I already showed you this, the control cells. You don't see any comet tail at all. All the DNA is inside the nucleus. So, and then the other method is even more simple then. So that comet cell is sort of a single cell electrophoresis method. This micronuclei assay is basically staining and looking, and if you see something outside of the nucleus, that's a micronuclei. And again, in the 80s, people started looking at this, and it's highly correlated with different environmental risks, occupational hazards. And so this just sort of shows how when you have DNA replication and then the two daughter cells are being made, how in the nucleus you can end up with a micronuclei. And it's very complicated, this pulling apart of the chromosomes. And again, the COMET assays have already been published using cheek cells. And I've been in contact with this woman from, where is she? Benzine, Iris Benzine. She works in Hong Kong. And actually, most of the people in her lab are now using blood cells again. But it's still, I think, a very valid way. And this paper was quite interesting. They showed not only that things would cause damage, but also that some things would protect, like green tea protected the cheek cells. And it's from 2005. I think it's good. And the micronuclei, again, here it shows some other studies in cheek cells, results in cheek cells, and from this paper. And here you can see people who drink alcohol, who use mouthwash, they actually did have more, not only the DNA damage, but apoptosis, and they use these micronucleic acids. So, okay, so the idea is that we're going to put together some simple quantitative protocols to share, and the easy way to get the cheek cells is just with a toothbrush. You just scrape it on the toothbrush, you put it in saline solution, and you've got a lot of cells. And you can go ahead and treat them in different ways, have triplicates, do all sorts of things, ex situ experiments on the lab bench. And if you're doing the COMET assay, you embed them in agarose, and you treat them with a protease, and then you do a very short electrophoresis step, and then you do imaging under the microscope. And if you're doing the micronucleus assay, you go ahead and you just stain, and you look for micronuclei. And again, that's not so simple as it sounds, because you actually need big numbers to be able to have something you can really have data that means something. So basically, you'll see maybe 1 or 2 micronuclei for 1,000 cells, and maybe if you've been exposed to something, you'll have 8 or 10 micronuclei for 1,000 cells. So the micronucleus, it's really a big damage, right? There's a big piece of chromosome that broke off. But for the comet cells, you should be able to see a much more sensitive scale of relative hits to the DNA. And the idea is that at Aquarium, there's some people who are really into computer stuff and databases and so on. The idea is that you get everybody all over the world saying, well, I live near a place where they spray pesticides all the time. I want to look at my own cheek cells on the day after they've sprayed, and I have a baseline, many days where they didn't spray, and then see if there are changes in these things. And then there are obviously ethical issues, because you don't want people doing experiments that are dangerous for themselves. But of course, these things are done to us without our choice, usually. So if we find out something and enough people bring this data in, we might get answers that are enough to help the regulatory people actually make some efforts for the better. And yeah, big data. People love big data nowadays. But yeah, again, you need to have people who know about statistics, and you need to be able to have things about confidentiality. And also, there's this whole problem of reporting bias. You might see have your own slide with your own cheek cells and say, well, I don't see any micronuclei. So one thing we've been working on is when you do a workshop, you actually have pairs of people, and then you have the other person scoring the other person's slide and taking pictures, right? And everything's saved, and then you can go back and say, that really was a micronucleus there. And then again, that's this do it together thing. And of course you can do it yourself, because a lot of people do have their own little labs. I know people in Berlin who are doing PCR on their own DNA. So, okay, if you like to do it yourself, do it yourself. But together also does sometimes help a lot, especially with the young people. And this just shows a few things from the aquarium and from my initial examples. So this was actually my first micronucleus. And I actually saw this on the day after the pear field across from my house was sprayed. But einmal ist keinmal, they say in German. So anyway, it's really a question of doing a lot of these things. And there are many, we have a lot of old equipment at the aquarium and old cameras, and so whatever you have, I think there are many ways to do these things and get good answers. But ultimately, we want to make a little chip for the COMET assay, especially, that would have places for controls and the treatments and the little electrophoresis all in a cell that's about the size of a slide, so you can just look directly after the experiment. But right now, I've been doing everything sort of by hand, and it's not so bad. And in fact, it seems really robust. For instance, these cells here, see these big salt crystals? The cheek cells, you can just let them dry down from the saline solution, and go ahead and wash them off, stain them, and look at them, and they're not so bad. And there's some questions about scale, whether you have a good microscope or a bad microscope. So there are these little like USB microscopes. sometimes they don't look very good, the pictures, but it's enough to get information. And again, so here's two cells that were stained, so you can see the nuclei, sort of a little bit blue. That was from methylene blue. And then here you can see there's also dangers. You have to know what you're looking at. Some people might say, oh, maybe this is a micronucleus. See, there's one little circle there and another there. But actually, in this image, there were two cells on top of each other. So you have to have a little bit of caution and not get carried away and not panic. Never panic. Okay, so there's a lot of challenges about the DNA stain, because some of the stains, the classic stains for histochemistry, some of them are bad for genomic integrity. They slide into the DNA. You want people using gloves, you want people using as much sort of care when they're doing these things as possible, but hopefully finding things that are less dangerous would be really good. So what I showed you, this cyber safe dye at the beginning, actually it's an intercalator. It goes into DNA. If it got into your cells, it wouldn't be good. So even though it's called safe in the trademark name, I think it's from Invitrogen, you should be careful. And again, there's these questions of cell counts, calibration, baselines, again, for the statistics. So if somebody's saying, I really have more now and not less, you have to really be able to show it's not just p less than 0.05, it really has to be stronger, a real statistical sort of test for multivariate animals and so on. And for the comets, again, there's this thing about doing the treatments and having a little simple way to do the electrophoresis run. But if you have old gel boxes, you can just put a slide that has your agarose patch on it, and you can do that's how I did my comets that I showed you. And then there's this thing about control samples. And so ideally, what we'll have is this sort of chip where you have something that's a positive control, a negative control, and then the real test. And for making this chip, there is one engineer at the aquarium who says it's not going to be hard at all. And we'll be able to do some 3D printing on a slide and then have two little electrodes and some little micro flow through things. And so hopefully we're going to have this working. And again, I already talked about the stains. But for the comets, that methylene blue doesn't look like it works at all. I didn't have any success with it. And this just shows the Arduino panel. So I just started knowing about all this when there was a biosensor course for a year ago for another project called Bravo. It was something I worked on, a big EU project about detecting pollution in the ocean. And that's when I first heard that even biohackers existed and got to know this group at Aquarium in Lausanne. And so I'm very inspired by them and hoping that we can do a bunch of citizen science. And I would love it if more people wanted to join in and do this. As I already said about collecting and analyzing international data. And so we need anyone who's interested, engineers, communications experts. 2017, I said, is the time when Azure really needs to update its website because it's very old-fashioned right now. And of course, artists. And Azure has had an art call, and we have a few nice things on our website from a few good artists. And again, some people at La Paris in France I've gotten to talk to, but I haven't met officially yet. So next time I go to Paris, I'm going to visit them. And of course, why not the BioFoundry? So I'm very happy to be here. I would love it if anybody here would like to help. And does anyone have any questions? Thank you.
I thought you were combining the information of, was it prostate and cervical cancer or breast cancer?
Breast cancer and prostate cancer.
So I thought that linking, because I'm just as a man, as soon as you put that link, it was like, hello, and I was shocked. I was just like, of course.
I was shocked too when I realized that actually we know the cause of cancers. It's just there's so many different targets. And it's this thing, we have 25,000 genes about, and maybe 500 kinases, maybe thousands of kinases, maybe 10,000, a lot of kinases. I mean, there's so many different things that can get messed up. And those might be the end players in causing a cancer. But the early phase is there's just some mutagenic event and you hit the wrong gene, and if you hit a DNA repair factor first, your risk is way higher of every cancer. Well, maybe you didn't really ask your question yet.
Okay. Well, you're asking for people to participate. I think it would be helpful if we introduced ourselves. I'm an electrical engineer. I still do some electronics, but it's lots of software, networks, and computers and things. And as a necessity, because some of the work that I used to do was not shown, it's things like digital photography and websites. Right? Now, I've in support of although we've never gotten together to work out anything to do with it, I've registered via app.sydney as a domain name. And I'm, well, one of the things I do is use WordPress to create websites in two quite different ways. One is just your standard pamphlet or catalogue website, but I also use it as a programming platform because WordPress gives me access to the browser graphics display. I can display images. I can activate JavaScript to draw graphics. But it also gives me access to a database to store and retrieve information. And the communication. And so I've got various applications in websites which, well, they do family trees and draw the usual diagram and things, but it just happens to be a website. So I dare say there are a few things that I offer or contribute or coach on. And next.
My question, going back to, you were saying that bacterial infections can kick off. Is it the same process for viral infections like human papilloma? Are they using the same?
So usually with a virus, especially some of the ones related to retroviruses, what they really do is they integrate right into the genome. And so that can, depending on the integration site, that can cause different problems in different cells.
Is that how human papillomavirus
I think the human papillomavirus does do that. It activates genes downstream. I think so. And the thing about retroviruses also is that sometimes they pick up a gene that's normally like a kinase gene, and then that's activated, and then it can go ahead and infect. So maybe the human papillomavirus can do that. I think it's a DNA virus that I think it. I'm not sure exactly. but there are actually, the crazy thing is that our genome is 10%, also in mice too, is related to retroviruses like the ones that cause HIV, like HIV, like retroviruses. And so 10% is retroviral related. In a sense, you can think of these things as shaping the genome, actually providing places where you can have recombination, homologous recombination, but that can lead to unknown effects. Sometimes expansion of gene areas and retraction. There's actually a lot of work about the dynamics of how genomes are changing.
This isn't a question, but it just reminds me of reading about fibronucleotides. That was the beginning of sort of all the mobile genetic elements, and even yeast have these things. But I mean, some viruses, they replicate in the cell, but they don't go anywhere near the nucleus. But
they might have something that then activates the immune system to make more reactive oxygen species or something, because they're attacking that the infection, and then that could cause bystander cells to get new mutations that are then problematic.
Do you currently have a platform where biohackers could share their data or experiments?
Not yet, but one guy, Sam at the Hackworm, is very into this stuff, and we thought we would be trying to do this over the next year. And well, depending on his studies too.
Well, how could BioFoundry and also Biohack Sydney contribute or help with the research?
Well, and basically, it would be great to have people who wanted to be beta testers of these open source protocols as they become more reliable. I mean, so when I showed you those comments, the positive control ones, is really I've done micronuclei many times, but the comments at first I kept just destroying the whole cells, over treating, and now I feel more confident that I've had a few times where I've gotten good comments in the positive control and not in the negative control and things like that. And so I could see why this one woman's lab in Hong Kong, they've turned to make the blood cells are more resistant to some of the treatments they do. But yes, if there are people maybe do a workshop and trying out these things and saying, well, we had good luck with this, we had bad luck with that, I'm really hoping to get as much as possible away from real like PBS and lab chemicals and trying more for the kitchen soap and the saline solution and maybe the protease for the contact lenses, although now everybody uses disposable contact lenses, so I don't know if those are in the shops anymore, right? They used to have some, maybe you would use papaya or something, I don't know, something with natural proteases in it. So I haven't tried all the possible variations, and so if there was somebody who wanted to try that sort of thing too, it would be super.
Ivan?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I'm professional geneticist, specialized also in molecular genetics. I can adapt to the virus ecology stuff. So basically they just affect the cell cycle in one or the other way, and that's how the cell is over-proliferation events occur, and that's what caused the swelling and this extra tissue coming out. So that's one of the pathways, kind of.
So they hyper-divide, but without any new mutations or anything? Or?
Well, about mutations, there was just a recent paper saying that every single normal person, like average person, has at least 40 deadly pathogenic mutations. No one still knows why they don't cause any disease.
Because
So
they're just in a couple of cells, or the immune system is supposed to be looking out for these things too, getting rid of them.
But that's kind of in every cell, that's the thing.
Oh.
And yeah, and also we had there was a woman from Harvard, I guess. She was giving us a lecture that day, and she was saying, so she's a professional oncologist, and she was saying that it's like there are millions of cells which are cancerogenic at every single moment, and our immunity is constantly fighting, just constantly.
Right.
And the reason why we survive is just because of our immune system, that's it. But generally speaking, every average person has millions and millions of oncogenic cells already in the body, that's it.
But so then maybe these things we're exposed to then just hurt mainly the
Yeah, we
immune
are
system's
constantly
capacity
exposed to everything.
to get rid of those.
So with that in mind, is it just then the environmental overload that then takes us to the tipping point and kind of, so it's
I
really
would
then
hypothesize
manufactured.
that. We don't know for sure. And yeah, that's the thing. If you know something is a mutagen, you don't necessarily know there'll be a mutation that's going to cause cancer because of it. And then so many mutations are silent, right? So in a gene that actually codes protein, 2 out of 3 mutations should be silent because of the way proteins are, well, at least 1 out of 3 would be, should be silent because of the way proteins are coded. But if you if you change the gene expression, you just have like a little bit more of one protein, you might end up having the cascade that you have overexpansion.
And the use of the term integrity, I think, is very important, because ultimately with cancer, there's the loss of integrity, that you have the cells that are then multiplying outside of the integrity of the organism as a whole. So as a framework for then understanding the nature of cancer and of independent, uncontrolled lack of integrity, it then becomes, oh, okay, so integrity is actually the key, and understanding the integrity of life itself and the ecosystem and the individual organism, so it becomes very powerful.
Well, and once there is metastasis, there's usually very little people can do. I mean, that's when it gets really bad. But the most promising thing I've heard recently from someone who recently came to Lausanne, I have to think of her name, in my website, she gave the last Women in Science lecture, so I can look it up. But she has a whole, there are things about the microenvironment around a tumor that actually can help cure many things. And there are amazing things about also stimulating the immune system against like melanomas, where people have total regression and are cured. And there's someone else at the SHUV in Lausanne working on that. And so I think there are many things we still are going to be learning. I think the last 10 years, so many things have been learned that we didn't realize. Like there are newborn neurons, for instance, that all these microRNAs are doing many important things. We're going to have many more surprises ahead of us. And I'm looking forward to learning them too. Hopefully I'll get the chance.
Good another question. You were talking about fluorescence, things that fluoresce. So, are you saying that those tests that they do, when they inject fluids into the bloodstream, is actually more dodgy than they say?
Well, actually, there's one person who had a startup called Exogen Biotech in the Bay Area in Berkeley, and he told me when I met him in person for the first time about a year ago. That actually when you get an MRI, if they use this contrasting agent, it can sometimes be worse than
What a busy testing.
than what the disease might be. So I think, barium and these things like that, sometimes they really need it. And so you have to follow your doctor's orders, but
You've got to be sure.
certainly my sister-in-law had breast cancer, and all her life she did exactly what they said about the mammograms and everything, and they didn't find her cancer because of the mammogram. And it's just, but she's good now, so that's a good story. But yeah, there's just, and there was one point where they were measuring kids' shoes with x-rays, right? Like the shoe size, and it's crazy. I mean, that really hurt people. And
it was even worse for the staff.
I know, I'm sure, yeah. That's the occupational hazard of being a shoe salesman. Who would have thought it? But yeah, at least some of those things we now know, but they didn't know it. It's this thing about machines.
Who's the most professionally exposed to radiation nowadays? What career?
Dentist.
No.
What?
Nuclear
Cabin
power.
crew.
Cabin crew. Oh, because of
Flying at altitude.
Yeah, of course.
Hour
And
after
it makes
hour.
a big difference, yeah.
Okay.
Should I turn this off? I have more pictures of animals to see.
Oh.